Hello. I am making this recording for myself, but I am also making this recording because I believe that this is going to be used as I am calling putting it away in the vault because there is going to be a day and a time that I need to come and I need to look and I need to be reminded of this day. So today is January the 8th, 2026, and it is 1:03 p.m. And today has been a hard day, somewhat, sorta, kinda. And just to give I guess a breakdown of the events that I feel like have led me to today. I have been in this place of faith, obedience, walking out the necessary steps that I feel that the Lord has given me as they come and moving diligently because I do not want to be responsible for any kind of delay in my life. This month, 8 days in, things I feel like have gone as, I don't know, as well as they can. Leaving out of December was a bit complicated. It was a bit difficult. It was a bit strenuous. And I have kept my faith and my hope up as best as I possibly could. Fast forward, I want to say I planned on fasting at the beginning of the year. I planned on doing a 21-day fast. I didn't think that it was going to be a Daniel fast because of the way that I eat already in my daily lifestyle. It just didn't seem like that would be appropriate since that is what I currently am doing. Straight, fruits, vegetables, nuts, things like that. And so my house got sick. The flu hit right there after Christmas, right before New Year's Eve. And my body, I began to feel the effects of, the fever trying to come in and the sore throat trying to come in. And I had already started all the different things that I could naturally without taking a lot of medication that had the sugars and the dyes and all that stuff that I knew would throw my body off even worse than the flu possibly would itself. And I went to the watch night service. I pushed myself. I dosed myself up on medicine and I said, I'm going to go to this church. I'm going to go to the house of God because I needed answers. In quitting my job in June, really more like July because that was my first official month of no work. I didn't know what was going to be next, but I did believe that I would be stepping into my own avenue. But I knew that it was going to be the Lord that had to lead me because I had no idea what I was supposed to be doing. And I got word in July of the I Am Healing Journey. But again, I was in a place of rest. And so I wasn't able to move. And I knew income would come in eventually because I had some stuff that was set in place because of my employer. And things have been okay. Things have been comfortable, but in the back of my mind, I knew money's going to run out if there's nothing else coming in to replenish it. So here we were, December, here we are in January, and there's just been different things in my life. I'll notate this. August was one of the hardest months financially for me. And August, I already had some stuff planned, but what was interesting and fascinating is that August was also the month that my oldest daughter's dad contacted me and he said, Hey, I quit my job. And I understood. And I was like, I guess from a man's perspective, I get it. And that was the end that I heard of that. Well, that month of August, I feel I had gotten more payments than I normally would have. But it was those payments that allowed for me when I couldn't pay certain bills, when my rent was going to be late, different stuff like that, when I couldn't pay the car note. That $108 that I got a week was enough to keep gas in the tank, to take my kids to school, you pick them up from school. It was enough to go to the grocery store and get what I needed here and there. And I'm more so focused on making sure that my girls had what they need because I have one, she refuses to eat at school. And I told myself it was very strenuous at times because it caused anxiety in me that my children didn't understand the new circumstances that we were living in. They just understood that mama wasn't at work. And let's see, so July, I got a check. August, I got a portion of a check, which was way less than what I was anticipating because of my leave and the taxes is what blew my mind. Like things would have been a little easier had I had. And that was the month that I came back from LA. So I came back home already in a deficit. I came back home literally with just maybe $12, $13 left in my bank account, and I knew that things were gonna be late. It was not a norm for me. I had a new truck note that I was like, "Lord, I didn't walk myself into this, so I need you." But I also understood that this was a time that I was living in that was not familiar. I was used to struggling financially, but not like this. I was used to knowing I had some source of income. And here we are at the end of this month, not knowing when other things are going to come in that I was waiting for, because it's like every time I looked up, there was some kind of loophole. When I did call to find out, hey, have my termination dates been put in? And I was told, no, they don't, they show up on one end for me to have gotten my accrued leave, that check, but they didn't show in the necessary systems for me to go ahead and submit the necessary paperwork. And so I began submitting my stuff for different monies that I had invested in, saved up, and I was told, "Hey, you have to wait a X amount of days." Well, come to find out, because my date was not put in at an appropriate, or I say a more convenient time, it was assumed that my termination date was the month after it actually was, and so I had to wait for that, and it was throwing stuff off until I wanna say, like, maybe October, and it was like or late September, and I was like, "No, I can't have 2 months of everything be behind." And so in the earth, I was having to make sure that things were as they needed to be. And eventually everything was in place. But again, I still had this waiting period. And it was frustrating, still having to take care of my kids, still having to praying to God that things just weren't as worse off as they could be, because I had to tell people, look, I can't pay what I don't have. And I remember with my truck note, I wanted to avoid those people as much as possible, the lender. But I had to tell myself that I have to walk in this in integrity, and I have to answer these phone calls, and I have to tell the people the truth. Look, I'm not working at the moment and I'm waiting. And it was the last person that called me, because I would give them the same information. But one person asked me, because it got later in the month and it was coming up on almost a second payment due. And I said, ma'am, look, I have X, Y. And she asked me those questions. Do you have anything coming in? Do you have a plan? And I said, I have X, Y, and Z. I'm just waiting. And I'm having to continuously call them because I don't know when things are going to drop, when they're going to be sent to me. I was honest. And she gave me an option of saying, hey, let's push this back. Let's set you up to where it looks like you've really not missed a payment. And because it's not the end of the month, which is when we report to the credit agencies, this will not affect you the way that it could have. And I agreed to a date of September the 9th, having absolutely no idea if I was going to have money yet, having to tell um, my leasing office, hey, I'm probably going to be late, and just finding out what is going to happen about that. And I was honest. I was trying to be as proactive as I could, because I didn't know of any other help. I didn't know of any other of assistance. I didn't know if the Lord had touched somebody else's heart and to put me on their mind, but I was having to continuously trust him. And so things have played out as well as I think they could have. I've had the ability to take care of some financial things that have come up along the way, like with my vehicle, that if I was in my regular day to day 40-hour job a week, I would not have been able to repair. I would not have been able to do. There are things that I've been able to do with my children that I would not have been able to do. There are times that when, as winter has come and I needed to go get my girls, a coat or, gloves and different things. When one needed a newer pair of shoes, I had to just trust that the Lord would not want me to just sit and say, God, I need when I had it. But the thing is, what happens when I get to the end and what happens when things begin to run out? And so I'm making this video today because today has been a day. It's been an emotionally hard day. It's been an emotionally strenuous day. And I told myself, I said, I'm going to come on here and I'm going to make this video not because I'm looking for anything, but I'm making this video because I need to look back on this woman in the future because I already know that God is redeeming and God is restoring, and I already know that there is provision in my obedience. But I have to honor the woman that I am today. I have to honor where I am. I have to honor where I feel. And I'm going to tell y'all, there is beauty and there are gifts in the struggle, in the hard and the strenuous times. And yesterday, well, really, let me backtrack to Tuesday. I said I planned on fasting. Well, I have had to step into this business that I have not really just put out there yet because, again, it's 8 days in. But I've been doing the work since January the 1st. I've been creating, different stuff. The podcast has come back up live. And I've been trying to figure out how to play all these different parts and these avenues when I've never done this before. I've been able to be creative. I have that gift, but I've never done it. I'm stepping into something for the first time. I'm going against what feels comfortable to me because, to be honest, the inside of me, the I say maybe my little inner person, she wants to run and hide, but in running and hiding, provision will not be made. And I'm having to trust God to say, look, I'm stretching already, and it's going to take resources before I can get anything in to make sure that I have the necessary means to do the things that I have been given. I say the ability to do because it is a gift to be able to walk into a door and the Lord let me know that He's with me, that He's going to provide. Going to provide and seeing it are two different things. Knowing that I obtain favor in the Lord and that things are going to come into my direction, that's one thing. It's one thing to know it. It's another thing to see it manifest. It's another thing to be walking in it in the active moment. And so that's where I am. There is this struggle, and life does not stop happening. Circumstances does not stop happening. And so Tuesday I came home because my spirit was disturbed, and I knew that I needed to fall on my face, not necessarily because of anything personal within myself, but just the room and the atmosphere that I was in. It caused me to be moved. I was bothered. My spirit was, I want to say my spirit was grieved. That's the best way to put it. The room that I was in caused my spirit to be grieved, but I understood it wasn't my spirit. It was the spirit of God within me. And I knew that I needed to go before Him, that I needed to submit myself to Him. And in that moment of being on my knees after I put my babies to bed, I just had this notion of knowing now is the time for you to consecrate. Now was the time for you to go under. And I also had a notion of how long I needed to do it. It wasn't as long as I was trying to give, which was 21 days. And the Lord knew I was going to need the energy to do these things that I've been doing at that point up to day 6. And so in that moment, right then and there, I submitted to say, in that moment, my fast began. I submitted myself unto the Lord, and I have been praying. I feel like the Spirit will lead you. Previously, before all of this, my prayer had been, God, send money because you need what you need. But my prayer began to shift, and I took notice of it because this was new for me. I would begin praying for open doors. I began praying for opportunities. I began praying for the Lord to allow me to walk into these places spiritually, physically, obviously, that wouldn't just be a one time deposit into my life, but that doors would be open so that a means of living, of continuous flow could be made, but also so that I had the ability to impact who I was supposed to impact. Others impact my life the way that they need to impact. And for there to be this, I don't want to say like a transactional relationship, but things are transactional. But to say, Lord, you're having me step into this business, open the doors, open the atmospheres, open the rooms. And just like I saw with David, like I saw with Daniel, as I saw with Joseph, they were faithful to God and they were anointed for a specific time in the earth. And it had to do with kingdom. God was establishing them for kingdom. And as I have read this and as the Lord has given me this revelation, I believe that the same is applied to my life today, which is again why I'm making this video so that I can have something to go back and watch. But also, I want to be a light to somebody else. So even though at times I feel like I'm walking in the valley of the shadow of death, I understand that I am still a seed that is continuously being replanted. And in my replanting, it will reap a harvest. And the intent of the harvest is for somebody else to benefit from me going under, for somebody else to benefit from my surrenderance. And so I'm making this because I'm going to need other women, other men, other girls, other boys to understand that God is not being mean, that God is not unfair, that God is not unjust, and that God is not unkind, but we all walk through times of uncertainty and we all walk through times of difficulty. It is a part of life and it is a part of the process. Some of us, it may seem like we feel like we go through more than the average person. I really don't know. But I'm making this with intent to the woman that I see looking back at me. I see a beautiful young individual. I see a woman who is graced by God. I see a woman who is walking in unmerited favor. And I also see a woman who is struggling. She's struggling with her faith. She is struggling to hold on. She has faith in God. She believes that there is goodness and greatness around the corner. She believes that there is more on the inside of her. She knows that there is exceedingly and abundantly waiting, but she also knows that just like times past, she's got to endure the storm. She has to endure the seas. She has to endure her boat being hit on every side. And she has to choose to say, yet shall I trust him. Yet shall I stand. And I had a moment today where I cried. I cried heavily. And I'm going to tell you why. That dad that contacted me in August and said, hey, not working. I shared, I was like, hey, I'm not either. And his response, it was like, shoot, that wasn't the terminology that he used, but still. And I had to tell him, I said, everything's okay. Everything's gonna be okay. Like we're going to be fine. And there's been other stuff because I have another dad that does not provide financially, like at all. And when he does, buy her things, I'm grateful. It's one less thing that I have to worry about, but it is not very consistent at all. Okay, well, I guess I got to some good stuff. And so anywho, um that threw me off. But I guess it's good I got on here. So what I was saying is that in the time of that whole process, I was angry, I was upset. And I think for me, what I was wanting, hoping, and looking for was some kind of validation, if I be honest. I wanted him to pay for the fact that I had been going through all that I had been going through on my own. The stress, the anxiety, all these different things of taking care of a child by myself. And when all of this was said and done, I really just wanted a mature person to show up to court and just let everything take place so that we could be done with that process. But to my surprise, which it shouldn't have surprised me, but I think when you get to a place of forgiving somebody, you really do begin to desire the best for them even if you don't have any facts or evidence that this person desires the same change in themselves. And this was kind of, just my reality in my face, because it really broke my heart for him that he didn't show up. And I knew what was well, I did, and I didn't know exactly what was going to happen with, because he didn't show up. And we waited and we waited and we sat there and we sat there. And every time I saw that door open, I just assumed, okay, he's here, he's shown up. He never came. And when I was made aware of, how they were going to proceed, and I also found out, had he shown up, what they were going to, what their first plan was, it really broke my heart, because it was like the very thing that he feared, he got by not showing up and just being accountable for whatever the reasons that he had not been paying. And so fast forward till now, that sparked a payment, because in a warrant being served, it calls for him to either sit it out as long as necessary, or or up until he paid a certain amount that they gave. It was like, had things not transgressed and progressed the way that they have in the last maybe like 2 years, that would not have been made available. And then the season that I'm currently living in right now, it just makes me have to look back at God and say, all I need to do is really trust you, which is what he told me the day of my divorce, which at the time my divorce was not planned to be scheduled for that date in particular. That's all that I had. The only notion in my heart on December 6th of 2022 was trust me, and it was pertaining to my daughter, because that was the only thing that I was fearful about, was my daughter. She was 2, and I didn't know how our worlds were going to be shaken, because up until this point, I was her person. And she had just turned 2. And up until this point, she had never really, had much interactions or dealings with her dad. And I cared more so about my baby's emotional state. It had nothing to do with anything or anybody else, but it's like the voice of the mother in me. I felt like I wasn't heard. And I knew I was going to have to trust God with my baby in a way that I had not had to trust him with my children before. That I had to trust that she was going to be okay. And I was having to trust that he was going to care for her regardless of what she endured in that process. I had to trust that God was going to be with my baby the same way that he was with me my whole life, and all the things that I endured. If I turned out to be this beautiful version of a woman today, then I had to believe that that same God is capable. I had to just believe. I had to trust that he was capable. And so here I am today, 3 years later, after that divorce, and everything that I told God that I didn't think I could survive or live through. Friends, I have endured. I have lived through it. I have survived it. I have gone through it. And I know that it's nobody but him, because I cried so many days, not knowing that I was going to say any of this, but I cried so many a times when our visitation would progress. It went from, supervised visitation to supervised visitation into his home. And then finally she would do 2 hours for 2 times on a Sunday. And eventually we worked ourselves up to our first overnight visit and our first weekend visit. And those things tore me apart, because my children don't do spend the nights very often. And at that time, not at all. And so it was a new world for her. And what really hurt me is that mama has always been her safety. And mama was unable to walk into this door with her. And because of the situation and because of different guidelines that we had, he and I are never to have any contact whatsoever again at all. And so here I am having to give my baby to somebody else. And not know where she's going to stay, not know if she's going to be with him, if she's going to be with somebody else, having absolutely no idea, and watching my daughter scream to the top of her lungs at 2 because this is not a place that she wants to be. She didn't want to be, in his presence, in his territory. And later on, things have worked themselves out to where, you know, others stepped in, other family members who saw, and today life is different. Today I couldn't ask for things to be any more smoother or better than they are. But today, because I'm still being affected and having to endure the consequences of going into a marriage that today I know I should not have gone into, but at the time I thought that loving him the way I loved him was enough, not paying attention to the different signs of what I was receiving back. And I say, had I just gotten married and gotten divorced, I wouldn't have any of these issues, but I reproduced in that season. And I have had to, be honest with myself, because sometimes I've said, if it wasn't for this child, how different my life could be. But as I've grown and as I have healed, I've had to stop looking back and say, this is the life that you are given. This is the life that you have. And no, it doesn't feel good. The circumstances don't feel good all the time. But in my house today, I don't think that I could imagine my life without that little girl. I don't think that there would be those moments of laughter and joy that I've had because of her. Her wittiness, she's very loud and very energetic. But I just look at the life that I have and I say, if I could go back, I don't think I would be doing myself a service or an honor to try to change the events of my life, because this whole thing that has happened with all of that has, I feel, been God's fish, because I think about Jonah. And I say that this has been the vehicle that the Lord has been able to use to get me into alignment, to get me to be the daughter that I am today. And so to take away that, I would have to take away the gifts and the lessons that I have learned in the process. And I don't think I have the qualifications to be able to justify thinking that I have a right to regret anything, because there's more good happening in my life than there is bad. But I come to today to say today has been hard, because yesterday was the first full day of that fast, and I got a phone call, don't know how I missed it. I got a phone call stating that the court date had been rescheduled. Now, funny thing is, I called them yesterday to give them an update on that, on my oldest daughter's dad, saying, hey, because I talked to him, hey, this is the name of his employer. He's not reported it. He didn't call and tell me that he was working when he started working. And so for the last 5, almost 6 months, there's been absolutely no assistance for either child. And again, I have no choice but to trust God, right? But that doesn't mean that it feels fair at times, and it doesn't mean that it's easy. And so I called and, got all of that handled. And while I was on the phone, for whatever the reason, I asked a question, even though I knew the answer. I asked for the details of that January the 12th court date. And the lady, she gave it to me. And I said, I just wanted to make sure that nothing changed. Well, that was at like 12:32 when I finally got someone on the phone. By 3:55 yesterday, same day, I get a phone call saying, hey, his lawyer has requested that things go to the original court. So the date is no longer January, but we moved it to March. Now the date is what kind of made me laugh. It's like March 4th. And I said, oh God, you got some stuff that's going to happen. But I wanted to talk to that gentleman on the phone, but there's such a process. I didn't even know if I was going to be able to get back to who called me. So I let it go. Changed the date in my phone. Didn't know the time. Just left everything as was. And today, while reading my Bible, shortly after I opened it this morning, I get a phone call, Attorney General. And I'm like, great, but I wonder what this is going to be about. And the lady calls me to give me the same information that maybe she didn't realize somebody else had called. And I began, just to talk to her and, ask questions and say, hey, trying to make sure that there's nothing that I need to know about, because it's like, I can't get a lawyer. And I don't know if there's anything else that they're going to try to bring to court, when the whole reason that we're there is because one continues to be in violation of a non-payment. And so when I got off of the phone, it's like those emotions that I did the best that I could to avoid yesterday, they flooded me. But I think it had more to do than just things being rescheduled. Because again, this moment in this time of life of uncertainty, it hit me like a wave, because I find myself in life in these scenarios that things will hit me suddenly. But the amount of time and process that it takes for me to get back fully grounded, it takes so much more time. And I referenced that to someone hit me in December at the end of the year, but they didn't let me know the facts of the incident. I had to figure out on my own, by looking at my vehicle, that they had indeed struck me from the side. But because I sat higher and their vehicle was lower, I had no idea of what took place, and things happened so quickly that before I could even, wrap my head around what was going on, they had already moved around for us to, pull out of the traffic that we were in. Well, that was December 16th. Here we are at the beginning of the new year, and I still don't have a fixed vehicle. But this person still, not only did I not get a full statement, they still have not given a statement to their own insurance company that they filed a claim with. And I have, had to be the one to go ahead and be proactive and say, I'm going to go ahead and get the quote for what it's going to be to fix my truck. I'm going to, make these phone calls to find out, hey, what is going on? Because I'm trying to get an update because no one's contacted me. And all of these things that have been happening in my life, it's just a constant reminder that, God, I know good is coming to me, but why do the times and the conditions have to be so strenuous all the time? Like, can I catch a break? When do I catch a break? And then reminding myself, be not weary. Be not weary in the times of doing good. And today, when I got that phone call, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I wasn't angry with anybody. I was more so broken. I was broken and I was hurting because I have no idea how the Lord is going to do anything. I have no idea. And what that moment did, it's like it intensified the unspoken words on the inside of me. And it pushed me into a time of prayer, but more so into a time of wailing and mourning, because my spirit has been crushed over and over and over again. And the daughter in me had to cry out, Abba, to say, I know that you see me. I know that you hear me. I know and I believe that you are there, but I'm having to show up in the earth. I'm having to show up in this battle. I'm having to show up in my life and it's breaking me and it's crushing me, and things are being pruned, and I understand that that is my oil. But in my honesty, what I also had to be grateful for at the same time is I could say, Lord, I'm grateful that my heart would rather be crushed than be bitter. I'm glad that my heart is willing to be broken instead of becoming hard, because I understand that it is better to go before God and to be broken and to be bruised, and allowing him to to fill me up as I pour myself out, because the opposite of that is I can be hard, I can be mad, I can be angry, and the only thing that is going to consume me at that point is bitterness. And if I would allow bitterness to fill me up, I am going to have to learn another lesson. He's going to have to humble me. So if I would walk in my humility and I would walk in being humble, and I look at the timing of this fast that I am in, he knew what was coming up against me. And because I'm already postured with a heart of submission, the hits that were coming, and I don't believe that this is necessarily the enemy. And it could be, I have no idea, but I'm not really worried about who's at fault. I just know I have to trust God. And in trusting him means whatever may come my way, I don't get to lose it. I don't get to lose my mind. I don't get to lose my attitude. I don't get to walk in that, because that is the unmature, unstable woman. And in 2025, the Lord has been teaching me to be grounded. Now, grounded doesn't mean when there is an anchor in the water, it doesn't mean that the boat won't be tossed. It just means that that storm will not have the same ability to toss it to and fro and it ends up over yonder. You have to throw your anchor down, because your anchor is that inner weight. I see the anchor as the spiritual being taking a weight. Now, me crying is me being human, and it's me casting my cares and my anxieties unto the Lord, because just like that anchor is going to give me strength. My strength may not be in the boat. My strength may not be in my outer being. My strength may not be visible to onlookers who are seeing the winds and the waves hit me. My strength is down low where nobody else can see. My strength is in a place where people don't even know if I've thrown my anchor down unless they witnessed it or I have told them so. But my strength in me said, pray, daughter. My strength in me said, tell your father how you feel. My strength in me said, what is it that you desire? So today I was able to pray some things, and I said, Lord, I'm not praying for him or about him. I'm asking you, not even it was my desire, but I prayed and I said, if it pleases you, if this is in your will, I am asking you to allow for complete ties to be cut, because I don't want to do this anymore. Whether he ever pays child support or not, I said, God, please just remove me from the situation, but only if it's his will. And I was pleased with my heart posture to say, Father, I know why I'm in the circumstance that I'm in the circumstances of. Just like Jonah understood why he was in the belly of the fish. And when Jonah repented, it was 3 days, and then the fish spit him out. Well, just this week, I have wrote in my journal, well before I knew any of this was coming, that I believe that this was my year where the vehicle, because it's been 3 years, would spit me out. 3 years since the divorce. I said, I believe that I will be spit out. And before the end of 2025, I got the word that this is the year of resurrection. Well, that was a resurrection, because Jonah was in a place that should have killed him. Jonah was in a place that should have broke him down, and he should have been digested into the bottom of the ocean. But instead, God spared him, and what could have killed him became a vehicle of transportation to get Jonah right back in line. So I know that in year 2026, the Lord has had all of this ready for me already. I just had to I had to go through the mess. I had to go through I'm pretty sure the whale had other contents in its stomach. I'm pretty sure it probably reeked a little bit and it smelled a little bit. So in this 3 years, the junk was in me. What stinketh was me. And the Lord was having to rid me. And there was so much, and he is such a faithful God, and there's his grace and his sovereign mercy that he knew exactly how long it was going to take for me to become the daughter, for me to become the LaDeshia that the Lord saw fit and that he saw necessary for me to be. So here I am in this 2026 year, knowing this is my year of resurrection, knowing that this is the year that the fish has to spit me up. But not only did the fish spit him up, the fish spit him up in the very place that Jonah had ran from. And so when today's call came and those things began to come out of me, not only did I pray for myself, but I began to pray for the other people, because anytime I go through hardship, my mind automatically goes to the men, and I want to say the women, to the mothers, the single mothers, the mothers who may be married, but they don't have any support. Because I'm not biased. I've been through all of the different spectrums. So I know I come without judgment. People are struggling. They don't need to be judged. They don't need you to go down through their history to determine if they're worthy of help. They just need help. We all need somebody who's willing to help us in our time of need. Doesn't matter how they got there. Can you help me today? We can talk about the issues later. I began to tell the Lord, I said, I remember going into the store this past week and I had to look and say, we need soap. What am I going to buy? And I had to tell myself, get what you need. And I said, Lord, I want to get to the place to where when I go to the store, I can buy extra soap, because there's going to be a mom who needs it. And I don't want to just get her the cheapest thing. I want to get her what she needs. There's going to be a mom and she needs hand soap. Okay. I'm talking about the basic things. She's going to need hand soap for her home. I want to be able to buy an extra refill. There is a mom who is going to need feminine products, because I was just here standing in the store trying to figure out. And I said, LaDeshia, this is what you need. You cannot be afraid to get what you need. This is something that you need for your body. And while I was laying on this couch looking like I was in a therapy session, and I said, I'm the first client. I am Healing Journey. I am the first person that has to go through this process. I always have to be first, so I can't lead anybody else down the journey. But I laid talking to the Lord and I said, I want to be able to buy extra feminine products. I want to be able to buy grocery store gift cards, and I want to be able to give them to moms and say, buy the baby the strawberries. Buy the baby the grapes. I have that little one, she loves strawberries and grapes, and I'm like, but that's not going to fill you up. But here I am with a plant-based diet. Okay, so I know the food don't last as long and you got to eat it in a certain amount of time. But today I said, buy her the strawberries, buy her the grapes. It was like $9-10 in total. And I said, get her the things, because as a mother, you've got to trust that God wants to take care of you the same way that you want to take care of these babies. And I told the Lord, I said, I really am not worried about who does and doesn't help, because we are not in control of another person's decisions. And I had to admit, I said, God, I cannot control his character. I cannot control what kind of father he wants to be. I cannot control if a man wants to be financially responsible for the child that they help make. I said, but what I can say is, I don't believe that you're pleased with them not doing. I don't believe that you're pleased with them thinking more about themselves than instead of putting their children before them. It has nothing to do with me. But I believe that because of the season I'm in, it's more strenuous because it's having more of an effect on my life by them doing nothing at all. And so today I took that time to pray earnestly. And I began to pray. I said, God, I pray. Because remember, this is a vault video. So this is for my future and the present me. I said, God, I am praying that companies would do contracts with me for their employees, for their mental state. I pray that somebody would understand how vital my gifts are. I pray that God, you would shine the light so that they can see the favor that is on my life. I pray, Father God, $1 million contracts would be written out, that there would be contracts where, and I'm going to say a number, $50,000. I don't know why that came to me. But I said, I pray that there would be a contract. There would be contracts that are written where they say, LaDeshia, we want you to come in and we want you to do whatever you do. And when they begin to see the benefit of it, because there is going to be a benefit, okay? Because I know what's in me. I have done so much healing, or should I say the Lord has walked me through this healing journey of my own, that I am now equipped and qualified to help lead others in the path that I have already gone. I don't believe that we can lead anybody to a place that we first have not been willing to go. And I will shepherd other people. So this is a business, but it is also ministry. This is the avenue that I feel the Lord has always called for me to lead his people. And so sometimes I feel that maybe my life is as strenuous as it is simply because I am a shepherd to a wealthy flock of his people that he's already predestined and preassigned to me. And the beautiful part is that I don't need a church in the four walls, that I will be able to minister and lead and direct people, to disciple people, even through a business. This is all God ordained, that I do nothing on my own, but everything is going to be through the Spirit of the living God. And nobody can stop that because the Spirit lives and dwells and breathes and moves and works in and through me. And so today I had that moment and I had to admit something. And I said, God, I feel like I'm alone majority of the time in this. I know that's not the truth. I said, but if I can be honest with you as your daughter, because I know that God has the capacity for all of me. I said, I need to tell you that I know I'm not alone, but because I don't see a lot of people around me, because in these times of going to court, I said, God, it's just me by myself. I don't feel like I have anybody because of the what feels like earthly limitation. And I sent a message and I asked somebody, I said, hey, I need for you to pray for me. And I was honest. But God has given me a dad in the earth that is not my biological father, but there is a connection in the spirit. And I'm trying to show y'all how one moment can change your life. I'm trying to show you how in one moment you can break. But that breaking is scripture. It's biblical, because that breaking where he says, I'll work all things out for the good of those who love me and are called according to my purpose. God already knew that this was coming. And I believe that in his sovereignty and in his goodness, in March 3 years ago, he told me to trust him regarding this same matter. And I believe that I'm going to see something. And again, I don't know what it is, and I don't really have a specific expectation. I've given him the desire of my heart. I've submitted it into the vault. And now it is my job to just show up and wait to see. And when I'm waiting to see, I can't really be disappointed, because it's not my will that I desire, it's his. And if he doesn't make it known to me, I will find out in that matter, because I don't believe that anything else can happen outside of what God desires, because I am his daughter. He does love me. He is with me. If God be for me, who can be against me? He will never leave me nor forsake me. I have these promises held up within me. And these are things that I speak for myself and over myself. And I say, if there is a weapon that is already trying to be formed for that date, it's not going to prosper, because every word curse that rises up against me, I shall condemn. For this is my inheritance, because I am a servant of the Lord. That is a promise that is given to me. I know that the Lord is my husband. The Lord of hosts is his name, the Holy One of Israel, the one who created the earth. That's word, that's scripture, that's a promise that the Lord God is my husband, my rock, my redeemer, my ruler, my judge. He is the one of righteous justice. He will vindicate me. I just have to stand and trust in him. And so I came to make this video to encourage myself in the moment, but to be able to watch this in the future, which will make today my past. And I'm going to smile, because when I look at me, do you know what I see? I see a successful businesswoman. When I look at me, I don't just see outer beauty, though it's there. I see the inner beauty that I now possess and hold. I see a woman who knows her worth. I see a woman who knows her value. I see a woman who will not cower down to accept anything that is less than or beneath who God has told me I am. And yesterday, I had this other notion inside of my spirit, and I noticed that now the Lord is talking to me differently. It's very subtle. It's almost like something will just show up in me, as they would call knowing. Those who have the gift of knowing. You hear him, you just know. You can't understand how you know, but you have to trust God to know that it's God, because you can't prove what you know. I have been praying for marriage. And if I be honest, I assumed that maybe, marriage was going to kind of be a way that the Lord opened some doors, or, things happened and things were established, but that just is not what has happened. And in April, I had a word that was spoken over me. I had a prophetic word that was given to me by a pastor that I've never met before. And I remember him telling me, after I had this moment and this encounter in the spirit, he waited for that to be over. And in that moment, like I said, this was back in April, I remember him telling me, he said, there's a business. He said, there's a millionaire in you. And that was the third time that I have heard that I will be wealthy. I'm not going to say rich, wealthy. But to me, the wealth matters, because I know the things that I desire and the things that the Lord desires, because I want to help build kingdom. I want to build other women. I want to have these restoration homes where I can take in broken, abused, battered women, those who are demonically possessed. I want all of the throwaways. I want those who are literally on their deathbed, ready to be zipped in a black bag. Like, that's what I want. Don't ask me why. The Lord spoke this through me in a church years ago. I spoke inside of somebody else's women's ministry that this is what the Lord was going to have us do, that we would have vans and we would load up body bags. Okay? We were going to be called for the women in the black body bags, and we would take them to this facility, and we would be able to restore them back to full health and full life. And then they would get to go back out in the community. But it's me. I am the one that is going to have that restoration house. I want a community facility for the homeless, majority men. Feed them, let them shower. I want as many that I can house to be able to stay, but on a daily basis, I want to provide showers. On a daily basis, I want to feed them, and I want to be the one to cook it. on a daily basis. I want to have a community garden where, they can learn these things, because this is stuff that I want for my own personal life. I want to be able to have job programs. I want them to be able to get driver's licenses and, get cleaned up. And if they've been on drugs, to get them detoxed, out of their systems. But I want this to be a community house. Everything that I do has to do with home. I want them to know that they're loved, and I want them to know that it doesn't matter what they do. They cannot stop me, from the organization from loving them. Because I believe some people cause trouble just to test the grounds to see, will they really keep me, or will they throw me away if they see how bad I can become? Yes, I believe there's going to have to be parameters and things set. But what I see inside of myself, I see a woman, but I see a spiritual mother. I see that the Lord has built me, even in the way that I begin to dress myself. Everything the way I saw myself begin to change. And I've watched him grow me up. I've watched him groom me. I've watched him prepare me. I've watched him let me know internally my spirit being was calling forth that woman that was inside of me. Today, I can sit here and I can say, I see her. I see her being pictured. I see her sitting here before me. And in that, I understand that some of the depths and the things that I'm suffering, it's not just for me, but it's for my spiritual children. I see that there will be men and women that will sit at my feet for me to teach them. That there will be men and women who sit at my feet, because in the spirit, I'm a midwife, but in the spirit, I'm also would be considered what they call the nursing women. And the nursing woman is somebody that, no, I may not be physically, breastfeeding them as I would a natural child, but I am feeding them milk in the spirit. I am feeding them until they mature. I'm feeding them until I know that spiritually they can be weaned from the milk process per se, and they can move to another level. I am able to feed them the things that, as a mother, the father has said, this is what my child needs in each stage of their life. And if the Lord transitions them to different places, as a mother, that is a part of the weaning process, is the maturity in a mother to know how to let go. The maturity of a mother to not try to hold on to her children longer than she's supposed to hold on to them, so that the Lord himself doesn't have to vex her because she's now become a crutch to her children. And so I'm having to learn all of these things with all the different aspects of my life. So when he's telling me to trust him in the legal system, when I'm having to share my natural daughter with her natural biological father because of the laws of the earth, the Lord is also teaching me in the spirit realm, there are going to be those same things that a mother, natural and spirit, has to trust God with the children. Really with anything that he gives her. And it takes me to Isaiah 54. Now we might start getting into a devotion, I don't know. But it takes me to Isaiah 54 because that's where the Lord has been teaching me, talking to the old barren woman. Lengthen your tents. Strengthen your stakes. Because he's basically telling her, prepare yourself. Yes, you've been barren. He says, but you'll have more children than the married woman. And so the Lord, like I said, he's been grooming me these past 3 years. Started before the 2022, but starting in 23 is when I really stepped into, because the Lord began to talk to me about my husband that would be in the earth. But I also want to say this, because I think this is kind of where I deviated. So to pick back up where I left off, yesterday I knew that the Lord had told me that I basically needed to go ahead and take my eyes off of the husband, that I was not waiting for him anymore. And at the end of 2025, I cried because I said, God, I thought it would have happened by now. I've prayed for this man. I've carried this man. I've fasted when, when things would hit my spirit. I've known that stuff has broken off because of the different levels of release that I have felt. And physically, I look different than I used to. And it is because of the amount of going under that I have done these last few years. And at one point, the Lord told me to give him back to him. And I did. And it felt like somebody literally took my heart out, cut it in half, and then walked away. And I said, okay. And a few months later, he came back to me in a dream with an issue. And when I saw him, I didn't have anything to say, but it was the words that he said to me. And it was also how desperate he seemed to be that let me know, you get to cover him. He's not gone, but the Lord needed to test you because he can't be an idol. Marriage can't be an idol. And I fast forward to now, yesterday, and the Lord let me know. He said, basically, LaDeshia, this isn't the season where I'm sending him. But if I will be even deeper and more honest, I am at a time where I understand that God the Father is loving. He's kind. He's gentle. He's sovereign. He's righteous. He's holy. He's fair. And as a daughter, the Lord has not allowed for me to go through this extenuating time of my life of things being cut and walking in submission and walking in obedience and walking in alignment with where he desires for me to be. He's not going to allow for a son of his to have access to me and that man not be completely sold out. And I say, as a husband, his relationship with the Lord needs not be equal to me. It needs to surpass where I am with the Father. In order for him to cover me, he needs to be stretched wider. That's what I believe. And as a loving father, what God has basically said is, I refuse to put you in the hands of somebody, whether I have them for you or not. He says, I refuse to give you to him prematurely. Why? Because I am a good thing based off the word, and I obtain favor with the Lord. So that man is going to get more favor when the Lord allows him access to me. And so, yes, I may know who it is, but he says, I don't care how ready you think you are. I don't care how much you want it. I refuse to allow for all that I have done and put in you and all the work that we've done in the restoration. I refuse to put you in compromising circumstances. He says, and I understood that. He said, I refuse to put you with somebody who is compromising in their own life right now. I refuse to put you in the hands of somebody that they don't have the ability nor capacity to protect you, LaDeshia, the way that you need and deserve to be protected. So God says, I got it. I got you covered because I know that you're safe with me. I'm not giving you to somebody in the earth who is going to harm you. And it may not even be intentional, but a man that is not fully submitted unto God is dangerous, especially for somebody like me who is walking the way that I'm walking into my assignment in the spirit and in the earth. And so what I understand is God has told me, he says, I can do more with you in your singleness than I would be able to do if I linked you to him now. So is it coming? Yes, but in his goodness. And I'm so glad that the Lord has that rapport with me where he can be that honest with me to be able to say, daughter, look, just take your eyes off of it because I don't need you being distracted. And I understood that I would be walking in rebellion and witchcraft if I chose to keep my eyes on something that God said is over yonder, because I'm supposed to have my eyes on him. I would drown if I'm still looking over here, because that means I don't trust God. And I'm having to say, I believe that the business is going to blow up with or without a husband. I believe that my finances are going to be elevated with or without at this point it's without the husband. I believe that all my bills are going to be paid without a husband. I believe that the Lord is going to do exceedingly and abundantly in my life, and there does not have to be a man who comes and rescues and saves me. The Lord wants to be everything. And to be honest, he can only be as great as the God in him. He can only do what the Lord allows and blesses him to do. He can only be who the Lord establishes him to be. And so it's like the Lord gave me a gift to say, watch me do everything that I intend to do in your life. And that person not being where they need to be will not stop or hinder you. And that is exactly what I prayed in April. When that man told me, he said, I don't even think I said what the whole prophecy was. He told me that there was a business in me that I desired to start. He said, and the Lord says he knows that you don't have the financial means to do it. Now at the time, I had a little bit more saved. And so that kind of struck me. I was like, wait a minute, God, what you mean I'm not going to have what I need? But he said, financially, you're not going to have what you need to start the business. But the Lord says, start it anyway, and he will provide. And he mentioned that I would have multiple books, that I would be a New York Times best-selling author. He told me that, I would have a way of speaking into the lives of children because of my own testimony. This man also told me that there's 3 times that I should have been dead, yet I was still alive. And he didn't know that I already had a book out. This man knows nothing about me, still to this day. And yet he spoke all of these things. And I remember the last part, he said he was, like he was having a in the moment conversation with the Lord. And he says, okay, God, you really want me to tell her this? And he said, the Lord said that you are going to be a multimillionaire. He didn't tell me anything I hadn't heard though. The only thing is that I remember going home and I said, God, what's the business though? He spoke I Am Healing Journey to me in 2023. And y'all, the visual, my logo, I did all that work, but I didn't have anything else to do. I announced it on Facebook, but I didn't know where to take it. Created me a little, a business page, and I went and took it down because I was like, I don't know where this is going. But I reread my book, which is where I created this beautiful thing. I wish I would have used that picture. I didn't. But in creating this, my book, that when I finally finished reading it in July, all I kept seeing is, I am healing. I am healing. Healing journey, healing journey, healing journey. It was in the book. I wrote it and didn't even realize that it was there that many times at the end of those chapters. And so that was my confirmation word in my own home when I prayed in July, and he brought this idea back to remembrance. Now fast forward to December, things are tight, and I'm like, God, what are we going to do? When are we going to start? Because I was in a season of rest. And January, going to that church, I got a word. You've been going around this mountain long enough. You've been going in the same circle. Now it is time for you to move forward. It is time for you to go northward. And I said, well, that's nowhere but up. And so today, enough things sparked. Today, enough things hit, and I was able to message my dad. And yesterday, I was able to do a Facebook Live on prayer and fasting. Have not been on social media since July. So I've been able to see how the Lord has definitely orchestrated some things because of my obedience. And this week, but these last 2 weeks maybe, I've understood that the Lord was calling me into more. He's calling me into leadership in a way that I'm like, okay, I've said that I believe that I'll lead a church. I believe I'll lead a congregation, but it will not have walls. It will be outside of the usual. And I'm saying that in this video. I know that people are going to watch this because this is a word of inspiration. As I'm speaking, I hear it. As I'm speaking, it's as though I'm looking at the future woman already. And I have to trust and believe that even this video very well could be a door opener. It can spark something because I'm speaking it into existence. I'm speaking this because while I'm speaking, I'm prophesying over myself because some of things have not come to pass. I've been looking at houses because I desire to be in the Dallas area. I've been looking at houses because a pastor that I had 2 years ago, I remember him telling me, he said, you need to start looking at houses. He said, I see the kitchen. He said, you like white. You want something big. You like these open spaces. I have been looking at houses, and guess what? I'm looking at houses that are big enough for myself and my daughter, and for me to have a home office. And if I choose to bring somebody in for a 3-day retreat, I said I want an extra bedroom, at least one extra bedroom. And houses have shown up that are cheaper than the $1 million minimum that I saw in other things. And I said, God, I'm going to trust you. I may not know how these bills are going to get paid right now in this apartment, but I have a truck outside that I didn't think that I would be able to afford as a single woman, but I have it, and the notes are consistently being paid. And so I am having to understand that the storm came to the disciples after a miracle. When Jesus fed the 5,000 plus on that mountain that day, and they had 12 baskets left over, Jesus sent the disciples and he said, go across on the other side. I'll meet you there. Nobody ever asked Jesus, how would he get there? He stayed, he prayed, he had time with the Lord that he needed. He sent them, and while they were going to where he told them, a storm came. And Jesus came like he never came before. He came walking on water. And Jesus told Peter, after Peter requested so, of course, he said, yes, Peter, come to me. Now, today, what dawned on me in my spirit with this is that Jesus was walking toward them, meaning he's coming in the path that they've already went in. In order for Peter to step out of the boat and go to Jesus, Peter it looked like he was going backwards. It looked like he was going in the direction that he had just came from. But he wasn't. He was going to the one who knew, had power over the storm, because he had already seen it previously. And Peter had a different kind of faith. He says, if you can do it, Jesus, I can do it. If you can weather the storm, I can weather the storm. But I would rather weather the storm with you, even if that means I have to step out of what looks certain, because what looks certain is getting my butt tore up. What looks certain has me perplexed on every side. What looks certain, that boat was meant to hold them in the water. Peter was willing to take a risk. And in the midst of the risk, yes, people say, well, he lacked faith only for a little while. But do you know how much faith it had to take for him to actually get out of that boat? And he is the only human, all flesh, that walked on water. Jesus was flesh and God, okay? He had dominion and power over all the things. But Peter was just a man with enough faith to at least step out. I've done the stepping out. Sometimes it feels like things are going backwards, but I have too much knowing, and I have too much of a history with my Father to know that he has not and he will not fail me. And I had to come make this video, this documentary that I'm calling, it's going into the vault for myself, because I need to time stamp this, because I have no idea what's coming. I know March and April already, before the court date and everything. The Lord told me back in August, when I had to ask somebody a question, and I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew I had to obey in at least asking it, because that was my sign of obedience, was just to do it and try. And I remember telling them that if I were to do this, I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what doors, the Lord was going to do financially, what I was supposed to do after the fact, work-wise. But I knew that I had this deep inner knowing of something was going to be March or April. And I assumed maybe my husband was coming, but we don't know, okay? The Lord said not this season. I don't know how long that season is going to last. But I'm excited, because you guys, I'm excited to see God be God. I'm excited to know that the only person that can get credit is him and him alone. I'm excited because as a daughter, the Lord has let me know he wants to bless me. that I don't need an earthly son in order to receive the goodness and the blessings that he already had established for me in the earth. See, it is God's desire to be good to his children, not because we have to work for it or do anything. Obedience is necessary. It's just a part of the process. But I'm grateful that I looked at houses today, okay, after all my little snotting and crying. And there's some stuff that I'm just like, it's perfect, in prices that I've never seen. And I said, it's still way above anything I've ever saw tangible. But all I have to do is have the faith to believe, right? That's what the word says. I believe that the Lord already has everything established and prepared for me. But this is my journey. This is my process. This is my heart. And I've told him, I said, God, I don't know what's going to come up this month that's going to have to cause me to put extra in somewhere else. But I have to believe. And I had a dream the other night, and there was a guy that I don't see often. I know him though. And I was leaving a gym, and he stopped me and he says, hey, I just wanted to tell you. It was almost like he didn't even know why he was saying it to me. Don't worry about the money. And I looked at him and I wanted to elaborate, but I didn't, because I understood he didn't know that he was being used in that moment to remind me God's got me. And all I told him, I said, you don't know what you just said. And he said, for some reason, I just felt the need to tell you that. And I was like, yeah, internally at this point, yeah, because God was using you to remind me that he put me in this predicament. I didn't do this to myself, but this is a gift. Trusting him doesn't always come easy, but trusting him is a choice. Either you are or you are not. And so I had to make this video, and I don't think I'm going to hold on to it long. I think I may just go ahead and let it go out today, because I want my life to be a light to as many people, whether one is a believer in the Lord Jesus Christ or not. I just believe that what I possess is enough to be something that people want to anchor to. And they may not want the faith that I have, or they may not want to profess the name of Jesus. But I believe that we as individuals can be the doorway to lead them to the way himself. And sometimes people don't know what they want. They don't know what they need. They just know they need something. And if we will allow them enough grace, because God has grace for us all. He knows how long it's going to take for one of us to accept him, if we're going to accept him at all. So if I can be the light source, if I can be, somebody says, I hear what you're saying, but I can't tell that you are having a dark day. Y'all, I'm surprised my eyes are not puffy. If I go to sleep, they might be. I cried, okay? I soaked that, this Puffs Kleenex. I was all congested. I couldn't hardly breathe, but I opened my word. And I thought I was in Psalm 51. Y'all, I was in Isaiah 51, way off. But the word basically said, wake up, stand up. Where I was trying to be was actually Psalm 42. Where David was telling his inner being, his inner soul, he's like, why are we so perplexed? He says, but we gonna praise God. So I read both of those passages of scripture, and I just remember there was a time that phone call would have caused me to go pray all kinds of stuff for that young man and everybody involved in it with him. But I've understood that gets me nowhere. I would rather have a heart like Christ, because that is where my greatest benefit is. I would not have the spirit that I have right now. I wouldn't have the joy or the peace. I don't think I would have the glow and the light that radiates out of me. I would have stolen from myself. And you know what I made up in my mind yesterday? I said, I don't want to give this moment more power than it deserves. Who determines the level of power that a moment can take out of you? you do. I said, I don't want to give up my peace. I don't want to give up my joy. I don't want to give up my happiness. I don't want to give it any power. And so yesterday I was fine, but today I broke, and I feel like I was supposed to break. I feel like when the Lord told me March, April, something was coming. Maybe this is a part of it, but surely not all of it. And I have to trust my Father God to be able to see. And when that lady called me today, the other lady didn't ask me about my employer, if I still work for HHSC. And I said, no, ma'am, I am walking into a path of self-employment. Do y'all know how many times I have had to speak? I'm walking in my own business, that I'm starting my own business. I done said it too many times. Well, the earth has to give way. The earth has to birth out what I speak. The earth has to, there's a supply and a demand. And I've already said, I said, God, real soon, I'm going to get to go up on my prices, because the demand for me is going to increase like never before. But there is a gift that I have in that. I will always give back to the woman that I represent today. The woman who needs healing, the woman who's going through a divorce, the woman who's been through the divorce, because I am pro-marriage. I don't hate my ex-husband. I did. But I get more peace when I believe that he can do better. I get more peace when I pray that he desires to be a better version of a man. I pray that he desires to walk in accountability. I pray that he desires to walk in self-control. I pray that he desires to walk upright instead of doing wrong and then being willing to pay more to stay out of trouble, when it would have been less if he would have just done the right thing the first time. That's my prayer for him. Hating him I don't gain anything out of that. But my heart becomes more like Jesus Christ on the day that he was on the cross. And he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Those men they really didn't know that he was the Son of God. They were just following their work orders when they nailed him. And there were two other people nailed to the cross. So this is something that they did probably on a daily basis. To them, it was funny, and they mocked him because Jesus turned out to be who he said he was, but nobody else had ever been him, and nobody else would ever be him. Jesus was something that they never saw before. So for my life, I want to be something that people have never saw before. Many of us have never saw Jesus walking on this earth. But what if I showed up in a room and I could say, but here he is? Because I am an image bearer. I am a reflection. My heart reflects him. The love that I want to give to my enemies, the love that I want to give to those who probably would love for me to fall and crash and burn, and I ain't did nothing to them, and my success wouldn't even affect them. It's just they don't want it to be me for whatever the reason, because there are people there's jealousy and envy. It doesn't have a reason. Okay, it's foolishness. I pray for those people, and I dream about people like that in my life, and I pray for them, and you know, that's all that I can do. But I love with all of my being this version of LaDeshia. And so before I get off of this recording, I want to say, listen here, baby girl, get ready to have your mind blown. Get ready to see God make you into a successful businesswoman, but get ready to be a successful kingdom ambassador. Get ready for God to call you to the White House. Get ready, just like David and Daniel and Joseph, they got called into the king's palace because they had a gift. Their anointing. The Lord allowed for circumstances to take place, and there was room made for them because they were the ones that he equipped and qualified. So LaDeshia, I want you to know that even in your times of heartache, in your times of despair, and your times of wondering, God, are you gonna let me fall now? He didn't. He kept his end of the promise. And I'm proud of you for doing your part. I'm proud of you for showing up when everything in you said, I don't know if I can go on anymore. I'm proud of you for starting I Am Healing Journey and Tailored to Tailored Faith Boxes. I'm proud of you because you walked into receiving the position of the underground. I'm proud of you because you are leading other men and women into their healing journey. I'm proud of you because you're doing what some of the four-walled churches are not willing to do. I'm proud of you because you're unfiltered and you refuse to let anybody shut you up. And I'm proud of you because there is a movement that is being awakened. There is a movement that is being stirred. There is a movement that is being birthed out of you, daughter. And that is the reason why you are enduring some of the things that you are. You are not an average prophet. You are not an average seer. There is so much more on the inside of you. The Lord has put his righteous judgment inside of you, that he is using you as a vessel in the earth to proclaim his justice. That is the reason you see things that you do. That is the reason why you will and do and shall walk in this realm of deliverance. You are who you are on purpose, and there is no mistake, nor do you have to apologize, because he said he gives his gifts without repentance. So you don't have to apologize because people don't like who you are. You don't have to apologize when they don't understand, but you also don't you ever coward yourself down again. Do not walk in false humility. You walk upright, you walk in boldness, and you be exactly who the Lord has told you that he has made you to be. He established you in the earth, and guess what, LaDeshia? He's proud of you. God trusts you. That is why he's opened the door to the capacity that he has. You have greater capacity in the spirit to carry more than you've ever carried. And as you know, the word says, to whom much is given, much is required. You cannot receive much greatness and not have to also endure the pain, the heartache, and the hardships that come with that. I say pain has a backside of beauty, because we don't get the beauty first. We get the process first. Then the promise is on the other side of the process. So baby girl, you're walking out of Egypt. God destroyed Egypt and Pharaoh before. He'll do it again. He parted the Red Sea. He'll do it again. He got them over the Jordan River. He'll do it again. The walls of Jericho came down. It'll happen again. And they walked into the promised land. It'll happen again. He put David in the kingdom because the original didn't have a heart that was after God. Baby girl, he'll do it again. He used Deborah. LaDeshia, he'll do it again. That Bible is repeating itself, and God is going to do a lot of it through you. And he's sending help, because you cannot do this by yourself. You have a great assignment on your life. And all you have to do is keep saying yes. Keep submitting yourself. And just know, tomorrow you're going to have your first live night of prayer under the underground, because you are called to go to the trenches, to the places that most people don't want to be because it's not pretty there. But this is where Shishi Ministry started, from ratchet to righteous. And so I just want to say, I love you, girl. I love you very much. You walk this thing out, and you be proud to be a wife to the Lord only as long as he says ride it out. And when your husband does come, it'll be God's timing. But that man will also be able to cover you appropriately. And do not accept anything less than until that is established both in heaven and in the earth. So we'll look back on this, and you'll see your beautiful face, and you'll see your beautiful heart, and you'll see your beautiful spirit. Because I know that, baby girl, the Lord is pleased with this.